All right, and it looks like we're live. Some good afternoon. Thank you for joining us for our first Ask Me Anything with Christine Oldfield, our Executive Director. We value transparency, and that's exactly why we decided to trial this session. A few housekeeping notes before we get started. Folks were given 1 month to submit questions via our Ask Me Anything form. These are the only questions that will be answered today, meaning that questions in the comments section on this video will not be read aloud. If you have a question that you would like to ask, Autumn has pinned the link to the Ask Me Anything form in the comments section where you can submit a question that will be answered by Christine via email. We will do our best to get through as many questions as we can, and if your submitted question is unable to be answered via live, you will receive a response via email. With that, let's get started. So Christine, the first question we have here is from Shauna. Does 4-H Ontario ask questions to youth at opportunities like Future Leaders in Action, Youth Adventure Camp, regarding programming, awards, and such?
Yeah, thank you very much for that question. So we very much know the importance of hearing from youth. So we solicit their opinions in a number of ways. At each provincial opportunity, we carve out time for something we call Youth Voice. And this is time we use to gather feedback in a relatively open forum where youth can share their thoughts on their experience locally, provincially, and nationally. We also use this time to ask specific questions related to topics, including, for example, awards. At the Impact Conference, we host focus group sessions so we can gather feedback on a variety of topics, including, for example, more recently, communications. And that's where we can find out where and how youth prefer to hear from us. And we have also welcomed staff to that event from 4-H Canada for them to get feedback on national opportunities as well. Also, at the end of each program, youth complete surveys, so we understand the impact of the program on them, and that helps us to gather feedback so we can use that feedback in future planning for those events.
Great, thanks, Christine. The next question we have is from Shauna. Why is the online programming not available until late May? Youth have paid participant fees 5 to 6 months before it is available.
Another good question. So like any 4-H project that is offered in an association, there are timelines associated with participation. These can range from a weekly program that runs 6 weeks in the summer, or as an example, a livestock project that maybe completes their meetings sporadically over a 6-month period. So while online Explore 4-H and Clover Buds at Home can be completed at their own pace, they are structured similarly as youth receive project credits for their participation for those online programs. If technology and resources allow, we have enough interest, we may consider expanding that window for online participation at some point in the future.
Thanks, Christine. Next question. Shauna asks, what does your typical workday look like?
Thanks. That's a good question, Shauna. I had to sort of think about that when I first saw that question. So the first thing I do on Monday is I make a to-do list, and I do it on a giant Post-it note. And in that, I prioritize tasks into rocks and gravel. So the rocks are the important tasks that may or may not be urgent, but they're usually big picture type tasks that are contributing to what I would say is working on the organization. And then there are these gravel tasks that are often more urgent, but naturally reoccurring parts of my job. So for example, a rock task would be teasing out a concept in our strategic plan, such as developing a strategy for two-way communication between staff and associations. This Ask Me Anything is one of the ideas that came from one of the big rocks. On the other hand, a gravel task could be completing the quarterly report that we provide regularly to OMAFA. Then I book time in my calendar for those rocks, and I'm usually booking that between meetings with staff, board members, or outside interest holders. And I often have meetings in the evening as well, as I work with the board, and the board are volunteers. So my job is not typically a 9-to-5 type of job. And when I have the opportunity, I attend association events, which I really do enjoy because I get to meet the people that make it all happen, the volunteers, and also I get to see the youth that benefit from 4-H.
Thanks, Christine. I like the way that you break that down into that rocks and gravel. I think it's a good way to look at it. The next question we have is from Shauna. Has 4-H Ontario ever asked grocery stores like Loblaws for sponsorship as 4-H cooking projects from these stores?
Yeah, thanks, Shauna, for this question. So there are a lot of considerations that are made when we are prospecting new sponsors. One of which is around the idea of scope. So, for example, Ontario Mutuals is a sponsor of 4-H Ontario. They are Ontario-based, and so their reach matches our reach, which is the province of Ontario. FCC is a national organization whose reach more closely matches that of 4-H Canada, so they sponsor 4-H Canada at the national level. This doesn't mean we can't work with sponsors with larger scopes, but it does require more collaboration and conversation, and we really need to make sure that we have a mutually beneficial alignment of our priorities as a sponsor and organization. So, for example, President's Choice Children's Charity explores issues of childhood hunger and public good, but what they do is they directly support school food programs. That is their priority. Sobeys focuses on healthy food access and mental health initiatives as an example of a priority. We encourage associations to build relationships with local grocery retailers and other businesses in their community. They are often very happy to support local activities. And perhaps that type of sponsorship could be used to supplement the cost of buying supplies for clubs. For example, Longos has a community giving program that associations can apply to. Their priorities are based around disease prevention and education, but also youth leadership, child nutrition, and food aid. So that might be a good choice in terms of alignment of priorities. Also to know, we have a fundraising guide available on our Google Drive and also a website with any guidance you need about local level fundraising. And our Director of Development, Karen Racher, she's excellent at meeting with people and advising them around doing local fundraising. So reach out to her if you need.
Thanks, Christine. Another one kind of on the philanthropy front here. Shauna asks, can 4-H Ontario arrange to get discounts for volunteers and youth at places like Staples or Michael's?
So yeah, as previously mentioned, we have to be cognizant of that scope when it comes to soliciting new partnerships, as well as our ability to align with their priorities. So as an example, Michael's does not give organization discounts. They have discounts for seniors, teachers, and military. That's what they've chosen. With respect to donations, they actually have a statement that shares they only focus on national organizations, which makes sense because it's a national company. Staples has a discount program for teachers, but their corporate giving focuses on healthcare and youth. So again, it very much depends on the sponsor's scope, their giving policies, and their priorities. In the past, we have worked with PV Mart and 4-H Canada to establish a discount code, a discount program that supported the purchase of 4-H project-related supplies. However, this program doesn't exist anymore since PV Mart closed in 2025. We are always looking for ways to support our associations and to develop mutually beneficial partnerships with sponsorships. So thank you for that question.
Thanks, Christine. We're kind of going to switch gears here and talk a little bit more about volunteers. So Kirsten asks, what can be done to simplify the mandatory training so that we don't keep losing our senior volunteers?
So volunteer screening and training requirements are very much dictated by 4-H Canada. It's part of our accreditation. It's also part of the provision of the insurance that we get through 4-H Canada. It's also important to note that the training requirements, such as re-engagement training, is also very much in line with other youth serving organizations. Volunteering with 4-H, as with volunteering with other youth organizations, it's considered a high risk volunteer position because you are working with the vulnerable population, and that is why the screening is so rigorous. And we understand that some volunteers feel more comfortable using the technology than others and could use some extra support. If your association finds that there are numerous volunteers that need help from a technology perspective, you can consider hosting an evening where volunteers come together to complete the training. And we know that Middlesex and Durham East have done this for the Commit to Kids training, so that's an option. Ultimately, we can't change the training requirements, and they are a reflection of our number one priority, which is the safety of the kids. But we can suggest ways to remove barriers and things that can be done at the local level to assist.
Absolutely. Thanks, Christine. Kristen asks, why is there not more representation by our regional reps at local events, meetings, and training?
Yeah, so looking back 10 to 15 years ago, 4-H staff completed re-engagement training with associations in person, and I'm sure lots of folks listening to this are aware of that and remember that. This would allow us to attend other events, such as an association meeting or a judging competition while the staff were in the area. In more recent years, staff have established what we call touch points that will include the 4-H Association's AGM and likely an awards night. This, of course, is all contingent on schedules. Oftentimes, it does happen that many AGMs are scheduled for the same evening. And also weather permitting, because we can know, especially at certain times of year, there can be hazardous travel conditions, and we won't require our staff to go on the road in those conditions. Staff enjoy attending 4-H events, and they do their best to attend as many as they can, and other staff as well. However, the other thing we need to consider is being fiscally responsible. We're aware of the rising cost of travel associated with attending in-person events, so we have to be conscientious about that from a financial perspective.
Thanks, Christine. The next question we have here is from Kirsten. Where is the biggest overspending happening in 4-H Ontario and why?
It's important to note that the 2025 deficit was not a result of being over budget in expenses. In fact, we were under budget in expenses. And for that, I thank our staff for their diligence and strong expense management. The deficit, and we mentioned this at our AGM, was a result of lost sponsorship, unmet membership targets, and the misallocation of one revenue that should have been deferred to 2025, but was accounted for in 2024 because that's the year that we received the money. With respect to sponsorships, almost 70% of Ontario nonprofits say that the economy is affecting their organization's revenue, and in particular in 2025, which is just to say that 4-H Ontario is not alone in this challenge. With respect to participant fees, we were a mere 5% shy of our 2025 goal. We did still see an increase over 2024, though, which is fantastic. This year, we have set a conservative goal of a 1% increase in membership because we want to make sure that we actually meet those targets. And as of today, I understand that we are at 3% above what we were last year in terms of participant registrations. Over the long term, our organization has remained relatively stable financially. The past few years have brought a lot of ups and downs, especially since the pandemic. But in terms of that sort of big picture financial perspective, we've maintained a consistent net assets, and our memberships are steadily, although perhaps more slowly than we wish, returning to pre-pandemic levels. And for that, I thank staff and also volunteers who make that happen on the ground.
Thanks, Christine. Next question. Kristen asks, without charging higher membership fees, how does 4-H Ontario plan to eliminate the deficit?
Thanks for that question. So for some context, in the past 6 years, we have had 2 deficits. We've also had 4 years of surplus in that time, which is something that's kind of easy to forget. Those surpluses represent about $150,000 worth of surpluses for some perspective. In terms of where the money comes from, because I know a lot of people wonder, well, where does that deficit money come from? It comes from our unrestricted operating fund, and that is made up of all the previous year's surpluses that we've had. In terms of revenue, without reducing expenses by decreasing service, participant fees are really our only dependable source of what we call unrestricted revenue. Unrestricted because it's not, it doesn't have to go to something specific. So that's the kind of unrestricted revenue is the kind of revenue that can help you meet budgetary shortfalls. Grants and sponsorships account for 60% of our revenue, so like a fair amount, but they fluctuate and they're also sensitive to changes in the broader economy. So this revenue often doesn't really provide opportunity for growth as an organization. It's also important to note that grants and sponsorship, including government grants, like including our grant from OMAFA, are tied to certain specific objectives. So for that reason, similarly, they cannot be used to meet budgetary shortfalls.
Thanks, Christine. Kristen asks, when associations ask for more transparency on 4-H Ontario financials, why were they denied? Not-for-profit financials are to be available upon request.
So first of all, it's true, nonprofit financials are to be available upon request. We have never denied anyone access to our financial statements. They are public. They're on our website, and we always invite questions, especially at our annual general meeting. We ask if there are any questions about those statements for board members or the auditor to answer. We want to ensure, folks, that our financial reporting follows all legal and industry standards, and to be honest, looks a whole lot like other nonprofits and charities' financial statements, whether they're 4-H organizations or not. Our audited statements are also available actually on the CRA website if you're interested in looking at them there. And there you can actually see some salary information if you're interested, if that's part of what you'd like to know. But our audits have consistently confirmed that our finances are fairly presented. We've had a clear audit as far as I've been with this organization.
Thanks, Christine. Next question pertains to volunteers, and Kristen asks, how would you suggest associations attract new volunteers? We have lots of kids interested, but have trouble finding 2 leaders with the same availability.
So I think that how associations can attract new volunteers is the $1 million question. My advice would be to try and recruit parents of youth interested in the projects. The parents already have a vested interest in the 4-H program because they want to see their child succeed, and they know the impact on the child of their participation. So they might be sort of the lowest hanging fruit, as you say, in terms of recruiting volunteers. Probably in any case, the first step is reaching out to somebody to become a volunteer, and that's probably your biggest hurdle. I think I wouldn't lead with all the requirements that they need to do in order to become a volunteer. That could be very daunting. My thought would be to consider offering like a buddy system to have that potential volunteer work alongside an existing volunteer. It could be an informal mentoring, or you could develop a more formal mentorship program for new folks. You could offer to take the lead on projects and show them the ropes so they can learn without having the pressure of already knowing all the ins and outs of leading a project before they get started. So that would be my advice. But I also encourage volunteers to talk to each other, because folks are trying new things all over the place, and they probably are some really good ideas out there that have proven to be successful.
Perfect. Thanks, Christine. Kristen asks, with having 2 deficit years in the past 5 years, do you feel this will negatively impact new sponsorship? Sponsors want their money spent wisely, and history speaks that money is not being managed well.
We have not received feedback from potential or existing sponsorships about those deficits. The pandemic was unprecedented, and the effects of it were long-lasting, and even greater than what we remember from the social distancing and wearing masks. Most organizations saw some kind of financial disruption during that time. Fortunately for us, our sponsors continued to support us at the same or even increased levels during those early pandemic years. We know that the economy is having a huge impact on the nonprofit sector as a whole. And while that isn't something that we have any control over, we can continue to foster and enhance our relationships with existing and new donors, and find ways to create those mutually beneficial partnerships that align with all of our goals. So that's how I'd answer that question.
Thanks, Christine. Some of these chat a little bit more about kind of volunteerism and 4-H as a whole for these next questions. So Joseph asks, if I'm shy, how can I still be a leader in 4-H?
Thanks, Joseph, for this question. It's a very good question. Like anything, trying something for the first time can always come with a sliding scale of emotions. However, what I would lean into is that the 4-H program is built on that learn to do by doing concept. So, and this isn't just for youth, it's also for volunteers. I think they could be encouraged to do the same. This means that you can lead any project you want without being necessarily a prior subject matter expert. Our volunteers often share what they learn just as much as the youth do when leading a project. We also encourage new volunteers to lead their first few projects alongside an experienced volunteer from the association. And this allows them to have that comfort to kind of learn those really specific ins and outs of a project or a meeting from someone who's done it many, many times before. So you can think of those folks as being sort of informal mentors, and that could help a more shy volunteer to build the confidence to take on that role.
For sure. I like that we've seen that kind of twice now come up in those questions, that informal or a formal mentorship program might be a really great opportunity to recruit volunteers across the province. So the next question we have as well from Joseph is, how has 4-H evolved to better support youth in today's world?
It's a great question. As I think many know, 4-H has been around for 110 years, so there's a lot of history. that leads us to where we find ourselves today. 4-H, if you didn't know, was initially known as the Boys and Girls Club until 1952, when the name changed to 4-H Canada. For many years, projects were divided between homemaking and agriculture, though regardless, experience-based learning and the opportunity to build leadership skills was at the root of all of it. That's something that's been fairly constant. So fast forward, 4-H has those same roots, learn to do by doing, though through even more opportunities to do so. So while there are still strong ties to agriculture, we provide 4-Hers with access to over 100 project manuals that span a variety of topics, including STEM, the environment, healthy living, recreation, food, animals, and agriculture. This wide variety of projects allows youth to experience the benefits of the learn to do by doing methodology while exploring what interests them, all while building those leadership and life skills, which are probably learned in the background and they're not even necessarily aware with them that they're learning those things, but that will help them to turn their dreams into reality, whatever those dreams are. In more recent years, we have also adapted programming to some digital formats so we can increase accessibility of 4-H by reducing the issue of the geographic barriers to participation. We know transportation is a barrier for many folks. And this has been done through our own virtual art show, our virtual judging competition that is, every year we have more people participating in that, as well as our Explore 4-H and Clover Buds at Home programs, but also by our local associations. We applaud your commitment in trying new things and offering virtual projects from cooking to art or even financial fitness. Ultimately, through all of these opportunities, we are supporting the next generation of Ontario's workforce. That's something we commonly reference in granting applications. In the moment, youth may recognize the hard skills that they learn in 4-H, such as how to clip a cow. But as they grow older, reflect on their time in the program, what they do really recognize are those what we call soft skills that they learn through 4-H. And sometimes hesitate to use the term soft because it makes it sound as though those aren't important skills. But confidence, resilient, critical thinking, teamwork, leadership are all skills that support youth wherever their journey takes them. So we emphasize that a lot. So Joseph, I hope that answers your question.
Sure. Thanks, Christine. Next one we have is Joseph asks, what advice would you give to a new member who feels nervous about getting involved?
I would say don't be afraid to jump in. It's normal to be nervous when you're trying something new, and taking the first step is usually the hardest part. But luckily, trying new things is what 4-H is all about. And the program is structured that way. It's structured to learn to do by doing. That's at the root. So you can join 4-H. You don't already need to know what you're doing. You can get comfortable doing new things in 4-H. That's the modus operandi for us, right? 4-H is a place where youth can become themselves, and our volunteers do a phenomenal job of ensuring youth feel included and welcomed, and we have research results that attest to that.
For sure. Thanks, Christine. And this is going to be our last question. So Joseph asks, what's one leadership skill every 4-H member should focus on developing right now?
That is a great question, Joseph. Resilience. The ability to pivot, stay calm under pressure, and recover from challenges is, it's always been an important skill, but it's incredibly important right now, no matter where you go in the future. So we recognize the significance of building that resilience, and we incorporate critical thinking, confidence building, communication-based initiatives to support youth in developing that very skill. All of those things contribute to resilience, and from my perspective, that's the most important attribute that we could be developing in youth right now.
That's great. Thank you, Christine. So those are all the questions we have time for today. Thank you for all taking the time to listen in, and big thank you to Autumn from our team for facilitating the technical aspect of this Facebook Live. If this is something you'd like to see more of in the future, let us know in the comments below. Hope you have a great rest of your day.